But yeah, let's talk about a bit about Affinity.
Yeah.
Tell me more about it. Love it. Congrats again on the accelerator. But what is it? How does it work? What's been the journey?
Absolutely. So let me start off by actually telling you why we exist, because that's sort of what drives us and why I've been able to convince other people to join us on this journey as well too, not just investors, team members, and obviously getting our license in Ghana too, which was a huge win for us. We got the first license grant. This month will be 10 years ago. Was the last license was granted, so it was a huge win for us. When I quit my job in the UK and moved back to Ghana, I knew that I wanted to help kind of build some level of prosperity within our parts of the world. We come from very fragile economies, right? And one of the biggest drivers of socioeconomic growth are actually small businesses. So I left the UK. The UK, as an example, 60% of employment come from SMEs, and 47% of revenue, government revenue, is generated through SMEs, so through taxation. If you take a look at our part of the world, with OECD countries, the tax to GDP ratio is about 33%. It's 16% in Africa. We are the lowest tax-paying continent in the world. And if you take a look at countries with high extractive, so South Africa, Nigeria, Ghana, our tax to GDP ratio is as low as like 6 to 8% because it's a very small taxpayer base.
Yeah.
Because it's a highly informal sector.
Yeah.
And the biggest problem that we face, it's sort of like this amazing opportunity, actually, it's not a problem, we shouldn't call it a problem, is the world is shrinking. Populations are declining in Asia, in Europe, in the US, and Africa is booming. We've got 1.1 billion people, 60% are under the age of 24, which is incredible. We're forecast to go to 2.3 billion by 2050. Jobs need to be created to make sure that everyone's okay. And jobs are created by SMEs.
Yep.
And the only option you have in order to actually nurture these SMEs, you have two options. Encourage formalization.
Yeah.
So that micro enterprise that's selling tomatoes on the side of the road, how do we get them to a point where they're actually manufacturing tomato paste?
100%. Yeah.
And then on top of that, these small SMEs, businesses that are already kind of employing people, how do you actually grow them so they employ more people?
Yep.
So that was sort of the crux of the whole thing with Affinity. And it will not come as a surprise to you. What lacks them and the reason why this doesn't happen is because there was a lack of financial services.
Yeah.
And the stats are astronomical. It's like 330 billion lending gap. In Ghana alone, it's about 9.5 billion, 400 million adults without bank accounts in sub-Saharan Africa. I'm not even including North Africa here, by the way. So we started this journey a while ago, and it was actually to build a digital bank. It had to be digital because access was important. These customers of ours, they work 100 hours a week. It's nuts. So if you're telling them go and queue at a bank for a couple of hours, they won't do it.
Yeah.
And the big issue there is the minute they step up and leave their place of work, revenue goes to zero.
100%.
Right? So that's why they sit on cash.
Yeah.
So you have to solve for them in their journey as well, too. And that's very important.
Yeah.
The second thing is affordability. It's not just convenience. It's affordability as well, too. Banking is expensive. It's for rich people.
Yeah.
The richer you are, the more options you have in life.
Yep.
It's really quite crazy.
Yeah.
In our part of the world, it's even more emphasized as well, too.
And that middle section is actually paying for the...
Of course. Absolutely. Yep. Absolutely. And banks were invented in the global north.
Yep.
And then they were, again, cut and paste. How those VCs want the Amazon of Africa. Banks came to our part of the world and were like, what do you mean you don't have addresses?
Yeah.
What do you mean you don't have? Well, okay, great. Well, you can't be a customer of ours.
Yeah.
That's it. Full stop. We're not going to serve you. You're not profitable enough.
Yeah.
Which is a huge myth as well, too.
Yeah.
Some wonderful innovations spurred, like obviously microfinance and mobile money. But what was really missing in the space is actually full-fledged banking.
Yeah.
So being able to provide current accounts, savings accounts, and investment products, as well as personal loans and business loans. That was very important. So we set off to do this, and it had to be affordable, so we had to manage our costs. And to manage our costs and provide the convenience, we used technology as a way of basically delivering that. The most difficult thing about the journey was actually getting the license. I mean, I probably just jinxed myself now because we only launched a year ago. I'm sure there are tons of other difficult things that are going to happen. But the license was a big issue because, when you're raising money from investors, they want traction, right?
Absolutely.
How do you have traction if you don't have a license?
Yeah.
You can't go and start lending and opening bank accounts for people without a license.
Yes.
So it's sort of a binary thing, right? And that's something that's kind of very important to understand. So I tried to get the license twice, failed both times, very complicated reasons, re-regulation. Also, there was an Ebola scare in West Africa, and everyone thought that we were going to get Ebola in Ghana. And by everyone, I mean investors.
Yeah.
what I had to explain to them is actually harder to fly from Ghana to Sierra Leone than it is to fly from London to Sierra Leone, by the way, to Freetown.
Yeah.
But they don't want to hear those sort of things. But anyway, so we lost the license again at that point. So I packed my stuff up, moved to the UK, packed my house in the UK, sold it, and bought a microfinance business in Ghana.
Wow.
That's how we entered the market. Huge amount of risk.
Yeah.
I could still lose everything, but all my money's in there. But what was very important when we bought this microfinance business is we weren't allowed to launch an app yet. We needed the full banking license.
Yeah.
We weren't allowed to also have any current accounts, but we were allowed to start banking some of our customers and giving small loans to them. And it afforded us to do two things: get to know how our customers, what the relationship was with technology and financial services. It was data, it was design-centered thinking. It was really trying to understand how we could deliver a product for them. We spent 4.5 years building, not because it took that long to build. We were building more and more products because that's how long it took for us to get the banking license. But once we built all that and we launched the product in October 26, 2022, we launched our first product. Our second product will be launched next week, which is great, which is super exciting. But we have a year of data now. With no marketing spend, we've acquired 30,000 accounts.
Sure.
It's really kind of crazy. 90% of our customers were their primary bank account because they were using cash until we came along.
Yeah.
And what's also very important is we've helped savers save $26 million to date and provided $13 million worth of loans.
That's insane.
It's nuts. And our products are free. No monthly fees, no charges, and interest across all accounts. So it's very important. We make the money basically from lending. So to touch on the final point that I was talking to you about as well too, and the why, why we're all motivated to fix this problem, not because it's sort of a duty. You're kind of creating employment. You're building
building economy.
100%, and it's an issue here in South Africa and elsewhere as well too. Small businesses need to thrive.
Yeah.
That's how corporates are made. They all started off as small
100%.
businesses, right?
I agree.
And they're the biggest employer base.
Yeah.
But just to give you a couple of anecdotes there. So the first thing is, in order for you to actually provide the loans that businesses want, you need to manage your costs, right?
Yeah.
Because the cost of a loan that you give out is your cost of funding.
Yeah.
How much are you borrowing for? How much does it cost to actually deliver that loan, so your operating costs? And what is the cost of risk? So not just operational risk, but also credit risk as well too. Exactly, which is very important. But obviously there's fraud issues and stuff.
Yeah.
Operational risk beyond just credit risk as well. You have to be aware of all of them. If you can manage all those three things, you can reduce your cost base. You can actually provide affordable loans.
Yeah.
Which is basically what we've done at Affinity. So
Incredible.
a typical lender, digital lender, it's short term. It's $100. It's 7 days, 21 days most. 10% interest a month. Our average loan size last month was $6,500. So much higher for smaller businesses.
Insane.
And our terms are up to 2 years. So these are loans that we're providing to customers they're using those loans to actually invest in their business to grow.
To build a sustainable long-term
100%.
business.
And to give you the kind of high level impact, we've seen our average borrower grow their revenue by 500% and their employment base go by 350%.
Wow, that's really
That's the power of financial inclusion, and affordable financing. And that lending gap that everyone talks about, the $331 billion that everyone talks about, it's not a niche product. It's not basically a payday loan. It's not a digital loan, a consumer loan, or whatever. It's not. Those products exist in the global north because people have poor credit history. They exist in our part of the world because consumers, businesses don't have a choice.
Yeah.
What really, that big gap, it's a niche product. That big gap, the 90% of that $330 billion is actually growth capital, which is what we're addressing.
Yeah. And just practically in the market, because you've got a really special touch point with your customers, how are you accessing your customer base? How are you educating them on uptake? How are you telling them about it? How are you creating trust and breaking down some of that barrier of utilization?
So a huge part of our success has actually been off of mobile money.
Yeah.
So mobile money has done a great job at basically educating our customers, and we're a very complementary product to mobile money.
Yeah.
So we basically bank individuals who have mobile money accounts, but we sit there as sort of like the core. And if you think about it as like a flower and a petal, right? You've got the middle, which is kind of our bank account. Then you have all these products. You have like an ATM usage, which is sort of what mobile money is. You can transfer money from your Affinity account to MTN and withdraw cash. That's something that's kind of very important. Exactly, at an agent. So what happens with us is we come along and we say, would you like an account using our own proprietary agents? And then we have full interoperability with mobile money. They can move money in and out using agents as well too. So it's fully connected. And that's basically, we're piggybacking off of that. And that's something that
and the trust that's there.
And mobile money has already done the education around financial literacy, USSD, technology literacy. And we use our agents to onboard our customers because that's our education to them. And it's a physical touch point for them to basically build trust with us as well, which is very important.
Especially if you're putting your money in somewhere and expecting it to grow.
Exactly. And now that we have a year of results, do you want to know what something that's fascinating?
Yeah,
what we've noticed is our customers give us money.
Yeah.
They then withdraw their money to make sure that they can get access to it.
Yeah.
And when they
put it
can
back.
withdraw the money, they put their money back and start growing with us.
Amazing.
It's unbelievable.
Yeah.
And it's something that we've seen over and over again. And it's something that we should have assumed because we've seen it happen before.
Yeah.
But it's really fascinating seeing that behavior. And our average customer who had an account with us a year ago, so we've been doing some aging analysis, they've grown their base by about 3 times.
Sure.
Their savings base by 3 times.
Those numbers are almost unbelievable.
Yeah, I know, it's crazy.
Yeah.
I'll give you access to our database. Promise we're not faking it.
No, but it's incredible. And, it makes me think that sometimes we just over-engineer when some of the problems and the solutions can actually be very simple. And if we're able to connect with the human behavior and get over the sometimes misconceptions that Africans need financial education, but they download WhatsApp and they use it. No one's sitting there teaching them how to send a chat or how to use TikTok or how to record a video. And I think that we underestimate the power of some of the more basic technology and solutions that we have.
And you have to see the power of it as well too in a difficult market like this where inflation's so high, et cetera. An affordable bank is something that people want as well. But what I also wanted to say is that it is kind of simple in the approach, but it's also very complicated because
in the background.
Well, it took us 4.5 years,
100%.
right? And then you need a banking license. So the moat or the barriers to entry are astronomical.
Yeah.
And last thing I want to say as well, too, on this customer demographic, because a lot of people kind of look at us and go, oh my God, you've got all these market women and can't believe like these deposit numbers look crazy, et cetera.
But that is the amount of cash sitting in those segments.
And also, let's be honest
have
here.
money, these mamas.
We have a history, basically, of either villainizing the informal sector for not paying taxes and doing all that stuff, or if you were like an aid worker or like one of a grant provider, or you romanticize them as well too. Let's be honest. Let's treat them for what they are. Amazing business people, entrepreneurs.
Yep.
We're not calling them founders because they haven't done a Series A, but they are founders. They're running their businesses. I gave a talk at the London Stock Exchange a couple of years ago, and there was a guy who was kind of nodding in the audience.
Yeah.
He came up to me, super bright guy. We're close friends now. Ended up going to an Ivy League university, and then ended up working for an international tech company, a very senior role. His mom was a market woman selling in Ghana and saved enough to basically send him to an Ivy League university.
Education.
Let's not also underestimate that the human spirit is indomitable. My parents were the first to go to university. They wanted to save enough for me to go to like a UK university.
Yeah.
And if I do have kids or whatever, I want them to go to an even better university and get a better education. That's what happens. You have a salary, you want more, you want growth. That's what happens when human nature kind of kicks in.
And I guess that's the lives that get touched along the way of the journey with Affinity, right? Because you're creating the initial ability to save and to become more financially savvy and learn some of the tips and tricks that other people have access to that you don't, but that gives the next generation the ability to do cool things.
Look, and we don't do any capacity building or any of that stuff, by the way. We're not telling businesses how to operate, how to be better, or, maybe we can add some value-added services in the future. We're just empowering them by giving them stuff that's affordable and enabling them to grow. We're not actually telling them grow and build, et cetera. They're doing that on themselves, right? We're just giving them the option to be able to do that.
Can you talk about your next product launch?
It's actually our app. So believe it or not, I mean, we launched our agency platform a year ago.
It's super cool app.
And
I love it.
I know. I can tell you something. We just found out this afternoon that the regulator has approved our app as well too. So super excited about that. We've been kind of going through for a year now. Thank you. So we're launching with 300 existing customers to begin with, making sure that they're happy and we give them feedback. They give us feedback. Then after that, basically pushing it out to all existing customers and then to new customers after that as well too. So we're taking a staggered approach to it so that we make sure that everything's okay.
The way it should be. That is the best way.
Worked so hard for this long, nothing can go wrong.
No,
or, or
absolutely.
if things go wrong, I'm sorry, things do go wrong. We all know that. I'm not here to kind of glorify the journey. We just need to make sure that we're like equipped to deal with them.
You can make informed decisions around
Absolutely.
how you move to try and mitigate some of that
Exactly.
uncontrolled environment.
Exactly.
But that's really awesome. What's the next phase for Affinity?
There's so much more to do in Ghana. There are a few other products that we want to launch. So at the moment, we're doing mostly SME loans. We want to do microloans as well too, that are fully automated, which is important. Payments is something that's huge.
Yeah.
So I mentioned that mobile money is mostly used as a remittance product in Ghana. It's like domestic remittances. So if I'm sitting there, mobile money charges are quite high as well too. But if I'm sitting there and I want to send money to my mom and she lives 2 hours away, it doesn't make any economic sense for me to go. I lose
Yes.
revenue and there's a cost to getting there. So I will transfer and pay that fee. However, if two people are interacting, it's a micro enterprise and I'm buying like a bottle of water from a container store and I'm standing face to face, cash will always get handed over.
Yeah.
So there is an opportunity there as well too, to make sure that that is digitized for their safety, for their convenience as well too. So there are tons of other opportunities that we're trying to see how we can leverage our network and actually create that.
If you enjoyed this discussion, feel free to like our video and subscribe to our channel for more insightful conversations with founders and fintech pioneers. I also really like hearing from you guys, so if you have any questions, comments, or experiences, drop them in the comments below. Click here to watch the full episode, or click here to watch another.